Namaste. So, where is the limit? Where's the edge? Where's the line you dare not cross? Where is the place beyond which you won't let yourself go? And for each of us, it's probably something different. And to a certain extent, it's probably culturally determined. But I'd like to play with that a little bit and start by telling you the story of the rehearsal dinner I was at Friday night up in Kohler at this place called the Blind Horse Winery. And it's a winery, obviously, in Kohler, where they make wine and they import grapes mostly from California. And it was a sort of wine tasting, and then the chef made little things to go, each course to go with it, and they paired their little wines with each thing, and it was good wine. I mean, and the waiter that was waiting at our table looked like Pee Wee Herman's son. I don't know if Pee Wee had a son, if the son was from France, but I don't know if the accent was real or affected for the occasion. And you know, you just get like a spit of wine in your glass, especially if you're wearing a collar and Pee Wee Herman's son is waiting on you. I got less of a spit than everybody else did. And it was very nice and all, very good, but you know, it's not a lot of wine. You do not get drunk at one of these things. And so I'm driving home through the rain, and just before on 43 I got to Brown Deer Road, there was a traffic accident. And obviously it happened somewhat recently because there were two squad cars that blocked off the two lanes and kind of forced us onto the shoulder, but there was no ambulance yet, nothing like that. And it was one car. It looked like in the rain he kind of lost control and ran into the median and bounced back off the median. And I don't know if there were any other passengers, but the driver was out walking around the car, and he was a dwarf.
Oh my God.
So all I could think of is the Jefferson Airplane, White Rabbit, and what the hell did they put in that wine? Was I going to get home and were the walls going to start melting? You know. I was like, you know, I wanted to go put on a Woodstock album. And I told that story at the wedding, and it just kind of whoop, reference just kind of went right over everybody's head. So obviously either nobody knew anybody even who lived through the 60s, which I kind of know, or they weren't going to admit it. But it kind of pointed out to me that there was this cultural divide around where the limit is. And then as I was listening to this reading from James, there's this real curious thing that happens, right? Because if you picture God up there, then all of these metaphors work. The good stuff is up there, the bad stuff is down here. But if you go up there in an airplane or maybe in a NASA mission, kind of orbit, and you notice that you can't find heaven, then the metaphor sort of falls apart. Because this divide that we tried to create, where what was from above is good and what is from below is bad, you're now faced with this reality that everything's right here. And maybe those lines that we want to use to divide good from bad are all of a sudden really, really blurry. And it doesn't mean they don't exist, but it does mean that it just isn't that simple. And if you want to find the good, you're going to have to find it in amongst the bad. And that's a lot harder to do. So we don't like that. We like hard and fast, easy to identify. We like the good guys to wear white cowboy hats, the bad guys to wear black cowboy hats. We prefer that their horses also be either white or black. God forbid they should be spotted and have both colors, because then we're closer to reality, but we can't just look at it and go, well, that's what it is. And so we know it's more real though, because we face those same decisions in our lives. And especially as we move on in our lives and look back at decisions that we really, really struggled with at some point. And now we look at them and say, well, that was really, that wasn't hard. But it just seemed like at the time it was so horrific. And like if we made the wrong decision, things would never be the same. Maybe that's being a little too full of ourselves. Maybe we need to recognize that, yeah, we might make a wrong turn, but once you realize you made a wrong turn, you can correct that. You can fix it and get back on track, and it's not all that difficult. It takes a little bit of time, but you learn things in the process. And yet for those of us who were raised in Northern European households, that kind of grace wasn't there. It was, man, get it right. What will the neighbors think? You can't be doing that. People will see you. And what it does is it puts us in this place where we're so vigilant that the lines that we can't cross just close in. It's like being suffocated. There was a great, it was an episode of the original Batman series, or the very campy original Batman movie, in which Batman and Robin were in this room and the walls started closing in. And they were trying to first stretch out and hold the walls. And it was this ridiculous, it was just, the beauty of the original Batman is it's so absurd. But isn't that what happens when we have to watch out to never make a mistake? And we get closed in, we get closed down. And it's probably the biggest barrier to love. Next to, and it's the same kind of thing, needing to always be right. Because if you need to always be right, there's only a couple options. You can be so paralyzed by the need to be right that you make no decision. And if you've ever known somebody like this, or wonder if you know somebody like this, just look at them and say, where would you like to go for lunch?
Where do you want to go?
Right? And if you refuse to make a decision, you'll be sitting there 3 days later going, well, the second thing is that we might make the decision, but we're not going to enjoy where we go for lunch because we're going to be so nervous that it's going to turn out it was the wrong damn place. And then what are we going to do? Neither one of those is living. Neither one of those allows our heart to really open. Sometimes I do weddings where the parents on one side or both sides are divorced and remarried or reparted. And it's very often just the most awkward thing in the world. Because even if they get along, which is relatively rare, it's just, the new partner is sitting over there like a penny waiting for change, and nobody can seem to say, I'm just going to set all this aside, maybe just for today. There's a Buddhist writer named Sally Tisdale, and I don't remember the exact quote now, but I use it at weddings sometimes. It's about fear. It says, fear diminishes me because it closes me in and makes me less than I might be. That's kind of the whole story of James, at least this passage from James. Is it from up there, or is it from down here? Is it good or is it bad? It's one or the other, and I have to make the right decision. And yet, Jesus keeps trying to push his disciples past that. What does he say? Welcome me. Welcome. What do contemporary Christians, particularly the conservative variety, do? Just the opposite. We have to decide who we can let in and who we can't. Because we have to be right. We have to be able to drive, it's right back to that same thing. Where do you want to go for lunch? So, what if we allowed ourselves to be less than perfect? Because we are anyway.
Well,
So what if we just admitted it and we're okay with it? What if, like Pema Chodron says, when you begin to touch your heart, or let your heart be touched, you begin to discover that it's bottomless. In the sense that It's hugely vast. You're not going to run out of it. It's a limitless supply. It's also scary as hell. I mean, for the first time, we make ourselves vulnerable, especially if it's in relative proximity to having been betrayed in either a big or a small way. It's scary. We want to bring those boundaries in. We want to bring those lines in. We want to live from the head and not the heart. We want to be safe. But the most overprotective parent in the world still has children that skin their knees, get chicken pox, eventually have some kind of an incident in the car. I mean, we just cannot protect our head. That's a problem. We just cannot protect ourselves from everything. So, how much better just to relax into what is? Just to say, yes, it's not perfect. Yes, if I was in charge, I would probably do it differently, but I'm not. And so instead, I'm going to learn to be as content as I possibly can be with life just as it is. I'm going to create space for other people to be happy. I'm going to say that the most important person in the room, ironically, is seldom me. But if I make everybody else feel to the best of my ability like they're important to me, that comes back. The Dalai Lama is famous for saying, if you don't want to be compassionate because you believe that being compassionate is a good thing, recognize that being compassionate will cause other people to be compassionate towards you, and do it for a selfish reason. The result is the same. If we live openly from the heart, not because we believe in living openly from the heart, but because we believe that it will cause other people to do the same toward us, the result is the same. There is a healthy selfishness. It's okay to put yourself out there, because the response that you get from most people is that they'll do the same right back. And pretty soon life becomes fun instead of scary, and you can admit that you do know what Woodstock was and understand the reference to melting walls. Amen.